Hello guys, welcome to Robotic Electronics YouTube channel. Today in this video we are going to discuss about microcontroller versus microprocessor. The term microprocessor and microcontroller can be confusing for those who are new to this electronics field because in different applications we will be using microcontroller and in some other applications we will be using microprocessor and some will be confusing what is this and what is that and how can this be used and how can that be used, what if this can be replaced in that place. So there are a lot many questions in this way. So to understand easy and to know about microcontroller and microprocessor in brief, we shall look on to this video. So let us know initially we shall compare microcontroller and microprocessor in some of the terms. Like initially we shall look onto the architecture, next onto the processing power, next power consumption, size, cost and application of these two microcontroller and microprocessor. So that we can have some brief idea like we'll be knowing about microcontroller and microprocessor and how this can be used in further. So coming to the architecture level, microcontroller consists of internal memory, input type, input output ports and serial interface. Whereas microprocessor consists of external memory, input output ports connected using system bus. Like in the microcontroller, everything is like a compact and all will be inside the like inside a single component. But like a disadvantage can be noted here, like if you want to increase or expand the memory in case of microcontroller, as these are internally built, that cannot be possible, but it can be possible in microprocessor. Like as the memory and other input output ports are connected externally, we can increase the memory and can change the ports based on that. Like a microprocessor can be connected to external peripherals like a RAM, ROM, input output devices. This gives the flexibility of choosing the peripherals in case of microprocessor. Whereas in microcontroller, it is a standalone devices which has internal RAM, ROM, and other peripherals like analog to digital converter, and you sort I2C, SPI communication links, etc. Microcontroller provides some fixed amount of RAM and it cannot be changed. Like this is the differences between these two in point of architecture. Next, coming to the processing power. Like coming to the processing power, usually microcontrollers will be having less processing power because microcontroller is given a predefined task. Like microcontroller will be given a particular task to do, so it cannot use extra processing power, so it has less processing power. Like for example, if we consider input from a component like sensor, it will be given to this microcontroller. It has to process this input from the sensor and gives the output, so it does not require any sort of high processing power. But whereas coming to the microprocessor, it needs intensive processing power such that it can perform multiple tasks. For example, if you compare your computer, it will be getting continuous tasks, like ROM will be doing this and other will be interrupting some signal and something. So in this way, processor will be having multiple works, so it need high processing power. So as the processing power increases, like microprocessor is best for the application where more processing power is needed. Next, coming to the power consumption, as we have seen before that processing power is more in microprocessor, so obviously power consumption will be more in the microprocessor. Microcontrollers which consumes less power, like they consumes very least power up to 12 volts, so they can run on the battery, which is a advantage to these microcontrollers. Whereas coming to the microprocessor, they consume high power, so they need to be work on some AC supply. Like for example, if you compare your computers, they contain the processor, so they need to connect to the AC supply to function. Whereas our microcontrollers like a basic board like Arduino, you always connect to some battery voltage, so it can run on that. So power consumption point, microprocessors need high power. So coming to the size, we have previously known that microcontrollers are compact in size, where all the components are made into a single component and it is made into a single structure. So microcontrollers are less in size. Coming to the processor, they have the connections externally. Like if you compare your computer, it will be having external CPU, keyboard, mouse, and some other devices like printers, etc. So the size of microprocessor will be very large as compared to the microcontroller. Moving on to the cost. Microcontrollers are cheaper, like very much cheaper compared to the microprocessor, whereas processor costs high because along with this processor we need to go for the external peripherals that increases the cost, and as the processing power of these microprocessors increases, the cost obviously increases. But the cost of microcontrollers are compared cheaper and can be available much less cost compared to the processors. Coming to the application, microcontrollers can be used in washing machines, microwave ovens, etc. Microprocessors can be used for different software development tools like web design. You can go for a processor, and photo editing and gaming, etc. These all require the microprocessors. So coming to the conclusion, yeah, here we need to get out to the brief conclusion. Coming to the processing power, see, microprocessors have high processing power, like they have about 1 gigahertz, like about 1 gigahertz to 4 to 5 gigahertz processing speed in microcontrollers, sorry, microprocessors. But whereas in microcontrollers they have a low speed, like low processing power up to 1 megahertz to 300 megahertz, which is very low. So as the processing power, like the task defined to the microprocessor is very high, but the task designed to microcontroller is very low, like it is having low processing power, and the memory is very much limited in the microcontroller, so you cannot add much more memory based on the user requirement. So this adds some good features to microcontroller and some good features to microprocessor. So we need to get on to this point, like based on our need and requirement, we need to go for the selection of controller or processor. Like depending upon the application, we need to select accordingly. For example, a application, like consider an application like washing machine, where microcontroller can satisfy the need. If a person goes for a microprocessor, he can go, there's no problem for going to microprocessor. But that is a stupid concept, like it is some bad ideology. Like if you go for microprocessor, there he is wasting the cost, and he is giving a less he's giving less task to a system that can do high processes. Like he's giving a low task to high processing processor, so he's wasting the capacity or processing power of that processor, and he is indirectly wasting the cost, and even the consumption of size is very high for the processor, so he is indirectly wasting that. So in this way you have to be wise to think in the selection of processor or controller. So it is very much important to use a particular component, like to choose controller or processor in a particular application depending upon the need and the requirement in the application, so that you can reduce the cost in making that prototype or some development of some product, so that adds much value to the product. So in this way one must be aware or must be think to that use the particular component that adds good features to the product. So this completes the explanation about the microcontroller and microprocessor. So thank you. Please subscribe to this channel and like our video. Thank you.